tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Asian Canadian women have been targeted by racist attacks throughout the pandemic.
Calls for government action after disturbing revelations about rising anti-Asian racism in BC. Also,
I think if people are well, I'm okay with, the idea of people traveling.
while many are staying local on the Easter weekend, thousands are making plans to get out of town. And
we think the likelihood of this passing is very slim.
stormy seas ahead, Alaska's push to have cruise ships bypass BC ports as they sail north.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. Their stories are shocking and disturbing, from being spit on to attacks. Asian Canadians are reporting an alarming increase in targeted racism during the pandemic. And a new national survey reveals it's particularly bad here in BC. As Zara Premji reports, we are all being asked to help stop the violence.
Under my skin, I'm exactly like you. I have organs, I have a heart, I have lungs.
Rosalie Kucherik wants you to judge her for what she does, not what she looks like. But over the last year of the COVID-19 pandemic, the racism against her Asian heritage has only ramped up.
And you hear the snicker of like, oh, that's an Asian, and they take like an extra couple of feet away from you.
She's just one of the thousands who've experienced this on a daily basis for years, but in a more heightened state since the start of the pandemic.
Some people smashing and broken my window.
From vandalizing a store in Parksville to shoving seniors to the ground in Vancouver. Anti-Asian violence in BC has seen a dangerous spike throughout the pandemic this last year, according to recent reports and police findings. In February, the Vancouver Police Department confirmed anti-Asian attacks have increased 717% over the past year, from 12 to 142 cases. But the soaring numbers expected by some.
I'm not surprised. As a matter of fact, I think the numbers should be higher.
A new report by the Chinese-Canadian National Council shows these attacks are just some of the more than 1,000 occurrences of racism against Asian Canadians since the start of the pandemic. And the majority of these instances, 44% to be exact, right in BC. Kucherik's son, Quan Michaels, is one of them. In July, he was knocked to the ground by a driver when he was riding his longboard. Then, while he was on the ground bleeding, the driver allegedly opened his window and yelled derogatory terms referencing his Asian heritage. And 8 months later, he didn't expect to see hate against Asians spike like it did.
I think now it's just popping up because, especially from the effects of COVID, a lot of people have gotten, not to say colder, but they kind of lost sense of what another person really feels.
With these incidents on the rise, many in the community are left feeling they have no other option than to
hold our guard up and put up the more alert, being more aware when you walk down the street.
Some calling this spike in violent incidents the shadow pandemic, and they're asking the community, if you see something, to say something.
If you rip off my skin color, I'm exactly as any other person walking down the street.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some welcome news tonight. BC's COVID vaccination timeline is being accelerated again, starting with those born in 1945. Here it is, beginning tomorrow at noon, anyone born in 1945, which would mean turning 76 this year, can start calling to book an appointment. On Thursday at noon, people born in 1946 become eligible, and on Friday, it'll be the turn for anyone born in 1947. When booking, you'll need your personal health number, in addition to your name, date of birth, and postal code. And starting next Monday, the 29th, people considered clinically extremely vulnerable can register for a vaccination. That includes people with severe respiratory conditions, transplant recipients, and those being treated for cancer. Details on how to register are in the mail. Well, despite the plea to stay local, it seems many people are making Easter weekend travel plans. BC Ferries says booking numbers are lower than previous years, but as Joel Ballard reports tonight, reservations on some routes are already at capacity.
The advice from Dr. Bonnie Henry has been clear.
What we need to do is stay local.
That includes avoiding non-essential travel. But with Easter weekend quickly approaching, it's unclear if it will be followed.
We are seeing a few occasions on a couple of routes where the reservations are subscribed.
On BC Ferry's online booking platform, several sailings already show that reservations are sold out for Easter weekend, specifically between popular areas like Horseshoe Bay to Nanaimo and Horseshoe Bay to the Sunshine Coast.
There's a variety of different reasons why people may feel it's necessary to travel, and it's not up to BC Ferry staff.
Plus, there aren't as many options these days.
Normally for an Easter long weekend, we would schedule a bunch of extra sailings, and we obviously haven't done that this year, so there are fewer sailings for people to book on.
For the mayor of Gibsons, it's not exactly bad news.
Easter, what a great time for people to get together, provided they follow all the rules.
He doesn't mind if people come to visit, granted they're COVID-free and abide by the rules, like sticking to small gatherings outdoors.
We do not have a lot of bars for partying at night, so that we still do people come here because they enjoy the quiet outdoor lifestyle. So come and enjoy the outdoors.
In Vancouver, people are divided over the idea of travel.
I think until the public health restrictions are lifted, I think it's my preference at least just to follow the restrictions and not to travel.
I'm okay with, the idea of people traveling and just, use common sense, wear our masks, keep our distances.
Due to the fact that the shots are coming out, or vaccines, I think it's getting easier. We're going to start traveling when I get my vaccine.
And BC's advice remains unchanged. COVID-19 remains a serious threat to people and communities in every part of the province. People contemplating travel over Easter weekend should stay local. Beamish, however, isn't fussed.
A lot's been learned this past year, and now I think it's time to put those learnings into practice and welcome people back to our community.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
And concerns about travel come as BC's COVID case numbers show more evidence we are in our third wave. Meanwhile, another person has died from the virus in our province. With 682 new cases, the rolling average is at its highest in nearly 3 months. And active cases are back up to levels we saw at the beginning of the year. Hospitalizations are now at their highest since January 25th. Well, new U.S. legislation could allow cruise ships to skip Canadian stops when sailing to Alaska, and that's prompting fears it could further jeopardize BC's already battered tourism sector. Our Tanya Fletcher joins us live tonight with details on that. So Tanya, what exactly is this proposed U.S. bill all about?
Yeah, it's the Alaska Tourism Recovery Act, and it was recently tabled by 2 U.S. senators. It would basically mean that cruise ships departing from American ports like Seattle could sail straight to Alaska without having to stop in BC. Now, they could do that by legislating an exemption to the current American law that requires foreign-flagged cruise ships to stop in Canada when traveling to Alaska. Here's what they said. Canada's recent decision to prohibit Alaska-bound cruise ships from operating in Canadian waters creates legal hurdles that will hamstring the Alaska cruise season. By providing this technical fix to the current law for Alaska-bound cruise ships from Washington state, we are taking significant steps towards safely resuming cruise ship activity and economic certainty at a time when Alaskans need it most. Now, today in question period, the opposition pressured the province to secure assurances that any such move would only be temporary.
The stakes for BC's tourism sector are incredibly high and require engagement by this Premier and this government.
It is international borders. It is up to the federal government to make those rules, and we are going to do the advocacy. The Premier and our government will do the advocacy with the federal government.
Now, I spoke with the tourism minister afterwards, and she doubted that any legislation would go anywhere. She was confident the likelihood and feasibility of it going through is slim, as she put it.
Well, we shall see if it does. This would be a major hit to a sector in BC already hit hard by the pandemic. What's the reaction from industry? Well,
BC's tourism sector, yes, is banking on that bill to stall for obvious reasons. And even if it does go ahead, many industry leaders are confident that any new rules wouldn't become permanent. However, if that act did take effect and did last beyond the border closures, the fallout for BC would be unthinkable.
Well, it could be significant. It could be huge. I've heard from many businesses now that we've lost the 2020 season. It looks like we're going to lose the 21 season. And they're very, very concerned. We think the likelihood of this passing is very slim.
He pointed to the $2.5 billion cruise industry that it brings to BC's economy and hundreds of businesses and thousands of jobs that are reliant on cruise tourism in our province. Mike?
We'll keep an eye on that. Tanya Fletcher with us live tonight. Thanks. Oh, Mounties are investigating after hundreds of kilograms of trash was dumped in the Okanagan backcountry. Look at this. More than 660 kilograms of garbage was left on March 13th near Beaver Lake Road in Lake Country. The area is a popular route to local recreation spots. The trash collected included everything from clothing and jewelry to pots and pans, even an abandoned tent.
We had about 10 people show up, and we managed to fill 3 trucks altogether.
The Conservation Officer Service is working with the BC Forest Ministry and RCMP to deal with the junk dumpers. An Okanagan couple has been charged in a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme spanning several years when they were based in Calgary. Isabel Regem joins us now live with what we know about this pair and their alleged crimes. Isabel?
Mike, Brian and Shannon Kitts of Summerland are facing several charges. The RCMP says the alleged fraud resulted in the loss of millions of dollars from multiple investors. An investigation by the Alberta Securities Commission found 38 investors lost $4.3 million. The findings led to an extensive police investigation that determined the alleged crimes were committed between February 2014 and September 2016. About Brian Kitts, the commission said his behavior is indicative of a brazen scofflaw with a callous disregard for the victims he duped. The ASC also believes Kitts knew the investment opportunities he presented were fictitious and that he used those funds for unauthorized purposes, including for the personal benefit of himself and his wife. The pair is now charged with fraud over $5,000, theft over $5,000, and money laundering. Mike, the two are set to appear in a Calgary court next month.
All right, Isabel Regem reporting live for us tonight. Thanks. Well, BC is kicking off a new pilot project that will allow electric scooters to cruise the streets and bike paths of 6 BC municipalities. The initiative will allow kick scooters to travel around Kelowna, Vernon, Vancouver, West Vancouver, and North Vancouver City and District. Like e-bikers, e-scooter riders won't need a driver's license or insurance, but they must be at least 16, wear a helmet, and follow road rules for cyclists. Vancouver's mayor is aiming to get things rolling in his city later this year. All right, let's roll on over to the North Vancouver Bureau. Johanna Wagstaffe is back with us tonight. That sure was nice yesterday. No, it was okay today, but that's it, I guess.
That's it. Yes, you're right. A bit downhill from the Monday we had, feeling like spring for real across the South Coast. But rain, as you can probably feel out there, is knocking on the door. But it was a mainly dry Tuesday so far across the South Coast. Take a look at the temperatures out there. We have been hitting the seasonal mark for this time of the year for Vancouver. 30-year average is about 10 degrees. So we are almost getting there. 9 right now at YVR, a 10 down towards Bellingham and the Harbour in Victoria, hitting an 11. We'll see temperatures cool a little bit as we get into this front. Here's the latest radar shot, and you can see just in the last frame that band starting to cross down the Sunshine Coast. We're going to see it fill in for Bowen Island any minute now, and also filling in out towards the Valley, Chilliwack, getting into some rain as well. I think for most of Metro Vancouver, this will start later this evening, sort of around midnight. The culprit is that low sitting well off the central and northern coastal sections where we do have special weather statements in place, and this is going to bring a change in weather to the whole province. For us, it's really an overnight and morning story, so get ready for a soggier start to your Wednesday. I'll take you through the long-range forecast because it is a quick hit, but definitely expect a bit of rain in the forecast. But Mike, from the pouring rain to pouring ale, a North Vancouver business is quite literally brewing up a solution to get more women into the industry.
Yeah, our Gordon Lovren introduces us to the team at Black Kettle Brewing, whose special hot blend will help give scholarships to female brewers.
So I did a degree in chemistry from the University of Victoria, and that's when I really developed my love of beer. So I started analyzing it, drinking it, and then I started home brewing because I really loved all sides of it, and brewing can be a very scientific process, so the scientist in me really enjoyed it. So that's how you get water in there. So that's what it'll be doing once we get going. For me, this just kind of brings the mash tun to the right temperature and gives it a little rinse in case you missed something before. People have been brewing since ancient China and Egypt. The most modern brew processes come from Germany. There's 500-year-old breweries there, started by monks, and that's when the brew process started getting written down. So low alcohol is usually 3.5%. That's where you get your light beers. No one really wants to drink anything below 3.5%. And then legally you can go up to 11.9% in Canada. And those are your barley wines, your triples, your triple IPAs. We haven't made one here. And I'm a member of the Pink Boot Society, which is a women's group for brewing that they promote women in beer through scholarships and programs. They do a blend of Pink Boots hops, and so all the proceeds go to the Pink Boots from that. Our water volume was 750 liters, so we're all good. We hit all the specs we wanted. And yeah, so if you're interested, reach out. There are plenty of women in brewing societies in both BC and Ontario and around Canada to encourage you. Even just something as learning a basic intro to beer course and learning a little bit more if you're a server, or up to learning the full brewmaster program. Cheers.
Yeah, thumbs up for sure. I did have to pause at the 11.9% reference there.
That's quite high.
It is quite high. And this is it's a good initiative. They're not alone in doing something similar.
It's true, but I've been saying science and beer should go together for a long time, so I fully support this.
Yes, and some other breweries I think are also they've got similar initiatives that are helping young female brewers as well. So nice to see that. Mm-hmm. All right, Joe, we'll get back to you in a little bit with the forecast. Right now, a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. A deadly shooting spree in the U.S., 10 killed, including a police officer. Coming up, what investigators are saying about the man who has been arrested. Just coming up on 6:18, thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, if they aren't in school, two young Newfoundlanders are scooting down the ski hill on their snowboards. Their parents have big plans now that it's officially a sport in that province. Colleen Connors tagged along with the family for a day at Marble Mountain.
This is Corner Brook's snowboarding family. They practically live at Marble Mountain and post daily pics and vids of Andy and Sadie flying down the mountain.
What I like about snowboarding is I like to do it because I get to spend lots of time with my family and friends.
It's amazing. And we have this right in our backyard, so you can't ask for anything better. And they love it, and they love doing it with us and all their friends, and it's great.
Yeah, very, especially when going super fast down the hill and I look behind me and they're right on my tail. So we've come a long way.
The parents have been riding since their early 20s, and when their girls were born.
So when they started snowboarding, they didn't make snowboard boots small enough for their size, so they would wear their winter boots, and we just strap them into their boards, and we'd have them on the bunny hill with their little pacifiers in their mouth and everything.
The pacifiers are long gone. Now it's all about skill.
I like doing tricks on my snowboard, like learning new tricks to get used to them and doing more tricks.
And when COVID-19 restrictions delayed Marble Mountain's opening date, the family turned their backyard into a course to practice.
Yeah, we did have a course set up before we went to Marble Mountain this year.
Oh, what was that like?
Well, it had a box and had more jumps on it.
We made the best of it and made a little course in the backyard, and they enjoyed that. And as soon as Marble opened, it was like a dream for them.
These snowboarding stars have even more dreams, especially now. In early December, snowboarding was given the distinction of an official provincial sport. Snowboard enthusiasts have been pushing for this recognition since 2009, and it allows athletes like Andy and Sadie to enter big competitions.
Opens up new opportunities for funding and support through the government to develop the programs a little further for athlete development, travel, going to other contests. We've got our eyes set on Canada Games 2023 right now, so that's a huge goal.
The Snowboard sisters traveled to their first competition in Martok, Nova Scotia this time last year, bringing home medals. For now, Andy is going to work on perfecting her favorite jump, the stalefish.
So you grab it between your bindings with your left hand, and when you do, you have to go between your legs.
And get as many runs down the mountain with her sister before the season ends. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Marble Mountain.
And from Marble Mountain in Newfoundland to the mountains of the North Shore. Still plenty of snow up there. More national and international news in just a couple of seconds. Police in Colorado have identified a 21-year-old man as the suspect in yesterday's deadly grocery store attack. It was the second mass shooting in the U.S. within a week. As Ellen Morrow tells us, a new president is now confronted with a tragically familiar problem.
A simple gesture after what's become a routine American tragedy. A mass shooting, this time at a grocery store.
Look, there's... Holy
10 people gunned down, including police officer Eric Talley, the first to respond to the attack.
They had family and friends, loves and passions and dreams of tomorrows that will no longer come for them.
Erica Mahoney lost her father, Kevin. She's pregnant with a grandchild he'll never meet. Those who escaped still reeling.
It's harder than it was yesterday, just thinking about the friends that I lost.
A 21-year-old suspect is in custody. Court documents show Ahmad Alyssa bought an assault rifle just 6 days before the attack. At the White House, flags lowered for a second time in just days. The country still mourning the 8 people killed in Atlanta a week ago. President Joe Biden issued a familiar call for tougher gun laws.
This is not and should not be a partisan issue. This is an American issue. It will save lives, American lives, and we have to act.
But gun control is one of the most partisan issues. Action remains unlikely. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee held a previously scheduled hearing on gun violence.
Democrats propose taking away guns from law-abiding citizens. But what they propose, not only does it not reduce crime, it makes it worse.
Thoughts and prayers are not enough. And yet, thoughts and prayers is all we have heard from my colleagues on the other side.
It's not okay that we don't have better gun control laws.
Stephen McHugh's granddaughters survived the attack by hiding in a storage closet before being rescued by police.
This has got to stop.
For now, Boulder mourns, and so many wonder where next.
CBC's Ellen Morrow reporting tonight. The other big news we're following out of the U.S. tonight concerns the AstraZeneca vaccine. Health officials there believe the company's latest results may have included outdated information. As Thomas Dagler reports, just yesterday, the company said the vaccine provides strong protection for adults of all ages.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
here we go again. With the AstraZeneca vaccine given to more Canadians, the drug maker is hitting yet more bumps in the road.
What they have done time and time again is continue to shoot themselves in the foot.
Just yesterday, AstraZeneca boasted in a press release that its vaccine is 79% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID-19 and 100% effective against severe illness. Trouble is, that message may have included outdated information, according to the U.S. Data and Safety Monitoring Board.
They got concerned and wrote a rather harsh note to them and with a copy to me.
We're not quite sure what that outdated information is. So it's hard to evaluate from the outside how concerned we should be.
AstraZeneca says it will have an update within 2 days, but it's not the first time the company very publicly faces such questions. A lack of clinical data at first led to concerns for seniors. Then there were reports of rare blood clots. Now this, the latest issue prompting Health Canada to again say,
at this point in time, we, of course, believe that the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine continue to outweigh the risks.
At this Toronto pharmacy, they're giving the AstraZeneca shot, and they're fully booked.
I'm reassured everything's going to be fine.
I kind of have to believe what the government says. So, yeah, I'm feeling confident about it.
With a vaccine rollout monitored this closely and carefully, there could yet be more questions about the shots leading us out of a pandemic. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
An early spring melt and the emergence of new COVID-19 variants is creating a dire situation for Manitoba First Nations. So a drive is underway to inoculate 100,000 people in 100 days. And as Cameron McIntosh explains, this vaccine rollout is unlike most others.
Outside, it looks like a sci-fi movie. Security decked in blue medical gowns.
Hello, hi. Take this one. You're good to go.
Inside, beyond the temperature check, a hockey rink has been turned into a mass vaccination clinic. 1,000 shots a day.
Relax your arm a bit.
For Garvin McKay, it's his first shot.
Feels good. I feel more better. Feels like I could actually don't have to worry about COVID-19 now.
Cross Lake, Pimachikamak Cree Nation has been paralyzed at times by COVID outbreaks. Chief David Monias hopes this surge approach will quickly build immunity.
COVID's done a lot of damage in terms of people's health and wellness.
What's happening here is going to be repeated in every Manitoba First Nation community and more than 20 adjacent communities. A drive to vaccinate more than 100,000 people in just 100 days. Trying to beat an early spring melt which threatens access to remote northern communities that rely on ice roads and the onset of new COVID variants.
It's very urgent. It's critical.
Melody Muswagon is Health Innovations Lead of Onogamizwin Indigenous Health Institute at the University of Manitoba. It's putting together the clinics with mostly Indigenous staff.
We knew that they were going to need help because the health resources are so limited in every First Nation community.
A unique model of First Nations delivering First Nations health. While provincial and federal governments are calling this reconciliation, it's also about pragmatism. Indigenous people make up about 13% of the Manitoba population, but about half of the critical care COVID patients. This taps into local knowledge and sensitivities in communities where there can be resistance to conventional medicine.
You don't even feel the pinch.
Helga Hamilton is here at the urging of a family elder.
Her words were, follow the science. Follow the science.
If they can pull it off, 100,000 of Manitoba's most vulnerable people will be vaccinated by summer. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Cross Lake, Pimachikamak Cree Nation.
The federal government has announced a date for the next federal budget.
I'm pleased to announce that on April 19th at 4 p.m., the government will present Budget 2021.
It'll be Freeland's first budget as finance minister and the first full budget for the Trudeau Liberals in a little more than 2 years. It's expected to include a tally of government spending during the pandemic. It sent the deficit for the fiscal year to almost $400 billion. Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan is facing more questions about sexual harassment in the military, specifically why he didn't take direct action when informed of allegations in 2018 against the former Chief of Defense Staff.
if you end up interfering politically in an investigation, somebody who has the confidence to come forward, you can undermine that entire investigation if there was any interference. I wanted to make sure that the information was dealt with properly, so that if it did turn into a proper investigation and had to go to court, that there would be no reason for somebody to say that, oh wait, there is somebody interfered, and that the person couldn't get a just outcome.
Canada's acting Chief of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Wayne Eyre, also testified today before the Commons Committee. He wants to develop a playbook for handling future misconduct allegations against senior officers. Well, some Ontario farmers are preparing to take in temporary foreign workers, and there are strict COVID rules to follow. Makta Gabrasalasa reports from a protest they staged today as they called on the government for help.
A trail of tractors with frustrated farmers at the wheel. What's driving this? New COVID-19 rules imposed by the Haldimand Norfolk Health Unit.
The 14-day quarantine program in 2021 has become nothing short of a nightmare.
The rules state migrant workers can only travel from the airport in maximum groups of 3 instead of by the busload, and only 3 workers at most are allowed to quarantine together in a bunkhouse, no matter its size. Farmers say it's creating chaos.
The additional paperwork, having to supply backup quarantine site. We're farmers, we're marginal.
But the health unit says the rules are needed, citing 5 outbreaks in just the past couple of weeks involving migrant workers traveling on a bus from the airport in larger groups. That meant 120 workers on 22 farms were close contacts.
If we didn't act right away, we would have more farms affected, more workers affected, potentially more people getting sick.
In all, COVID has claimed 39 lives in the area, one of whom was a migrant worker. Meanwhile, farmers are calling for government action. The farmers say they want help. They want the government to be responsible for quarantining these workers in a government-run facility for up to 2 weeks. British Columbia is already doing that. We asked the Ontario and federal governments if they're planning to do something similar, but didn't get an answer. Putting safety measures in place on farms is important, says this advocate.
We know that congregate bunkhouse settings are one of the largest contributions to the rise of the pandemic around the farm worker population.
The farmers say they want to protect the workers too, but they need help.
Without our workers, we can't produce the food that Canadians need.
And time is of the essence with the growing season just beginning. Makta Gabrasalasa, CBC News, Simcoe.
Anti-Asian racism is on the rise during the pandemic. Just ahead tonight, reaction to a new national survey that reveals it's particularly bad here in BC.
Expo, a transportation fair. But one new invention that'll be displayed here doesn't even move. It's wood, the biggest wood invention since plywood, and it's being used to construct the pavilions at the fair.
This was put together very much like a Meccano set. Each of these parallel beams is about 30 feet long.
Otto Forgas works for Macmillan Bloedel. The forest company has invented a new type of wood product called Paralam. It looks a bit like oak, but it's strong, straight, free of knots, and can be built to just about any size. But maybe the best part, it's 2.5 times stronger than conventional lumber. Forgas sees a lot of uses for it.
Clearly, we're not going to build high-rises out of this. But there are applications like these buildings where Paralam is more cost-effective than steel.
Forgas's optimism is shared by a more objective observer, Dr. David Barrett of the Forest Faculty at UBC.
I think it's going to be excellent. It's going to give the industry an opportunity to develop a product that's going to have a greater chance to compete with steel and concrete, particularly in applications where high strength and high stiffness are important.
And Barrett sees another advantage, a new market that can help the forest economy when folks aren't building houses.
I think it'll open up opportunities in the non-residential markets. Wood has been widely accepted in the housing industry in Canada and the United States for many years. The industry's been built up basically on serving that market. But we need some new markets. We need to compete with steel and concrete.
How can the wood compete against concrete and steel? Well, it can be manufactured to just about any size you want. Softwood strands are coated with resin. The wood is pressed into a beam and cured by microwave, ensuring a uniform chunk of wood with no knots or bows. The paralam comes off the press in a continuous beam and can be cut into whatever size you need, some beams as long as 60 feet.
Basically, it's the strongest wood-based building material in the world today.
David Parker is in charge of the paralam plant. He says the new product should be able to help conserve some of our forests.
We could utilize about 90 or 95% of a log going into the product, whereas plywood or laminated veneer lumber, a similar type product, at best I think could utilize around 60% of a log.
And yet another benefit, you don't need good trees to make good wood.
Essentially, not only helping save first cut trees, but as we get quicker growing trees with less strength and more problems, we can essentially produce first class, actually superior timber than we have today with what would be inferior trees.
Some of the stories we are following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I'm confident that if the bill were to pass, if the legislation were to pass, a temporary pass, that it would not become permanent.
The tourism industry is concerned about a U.S. bill being considered by the Senate. If passed, cruise ships would bypass BC ports and travel directly between Seattle and Alaska. They typically stop in Victoria, Vancouver, and Prince Rupert.
We're just going to stay home, you know, go around town and maybe go out to, I don't know, see some people we know.
Many people appear to be staying local this upcoming Easter weekend. And BC Ferry says booking numbers are lower than previous years, but reservations on some routes are already at capacity. A new report is taking stock of the racism experienced by Asian Canadians during the pandemic. As Katie Nicholson explains, it's created a climate that has some living in fear and many calling for urgent action.
Paki Wong slips into a mask and into high alert.
When I walk down the street, I am a lot more aware of my surroundings, like who's where, who's here, who's there, how far these people are.
This is Wong's new normal. Constant fear of racially motivated attacks.
I can say that I feel less safe than when I did before the pandemic hit.
A new report backs up those feelings. 1,150 incidents of anti-Asian attacks in Canada in the last year. Everything from physical to verbal assaults to microaggressions and vandalism. It drilled down into a subset of the data. 11% of cases included violent physical assault or unwanted contact. 10% included being coughed or spit on. There are incidents reported in every province, but 2 stand out. 40% of the cases are in Ontario, 44% in BC.
Go back to China where you came from.
Anti-Asian racism is nothing new in Canada, but the report's publisher says it's getting worse.
What has changed with the pandemic is people feel like, people that look like me are responsible for the pandemic.
The report comes on the heels of the shooting deaths of 6 Asian women in Atlanta.
Don't think that this would not happen here.
The report shows women are more likely to be targeted and represent 60% of the victims. Most of the incidents happened in public, 1/5 in restaurants or grocery stores.
These are frontline low-income workers who have to go to work so that we can stay home. And at the same time, they are being targeted.
The report calls for all levels of government to take action. It wants education, better protection for victims, and more resources to fight misinformation and hate on social media.
Condemn the rise of anti-Asian racism and racist attacks.
Yesterday, Parliament unanimously passed a motion condemning anti-Asian racism, but it had no legislative teeth, something this report hopes to change. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
And joining us now is Carmel Tanaka, Community Engagement Director from the Vancouver-based group Eliminate Hate. Carmel, thanks for doing this with us tonight. I do want to ask you, first of all, were you at all surprised by what came back from people in the surveys we heard about today?
No, not at all. Anti-Asian racism has always been here, and we know that there has been a rise in anti-Asian racism since the pandemic. So not at all. I mean, I myself am an Asian woman living in BC. I know what it's like to be living as an Asian woman in BC, and so unfortunately not. And I'm also not surprised that the majority of the incidents are against Asian women, as well as our elder population.
So what are members of your organization, your community, feeling about things right now?
We have a lot of feelings, frustration, anger, sadness, exhaustion. These are all words that come to mind right now. It's very brutal to have a sudden and overwhelming interest in Eliminate Hate's work, especially by the media, and that it took the murder of Asian women for our voices to be heard, despite the fact that we have been saying that there's a rise in anti-Asian racism since last year. I mean, where was this outpour of interest in the media from on Eliminate Hate and what we've been doing in partnership with the Vancouver Asian Film Festival and our reporting center with Project 1907 and our partner organizations back east? I mean, we published findings and statistics back in September 2020, and it clearly showed even back then that there was a spike in anti-Asian racism events and hate crimes and incidents that included assault and verbal harassment, primarily against women. And sadly, this number has now increased collectively to over 1,000 anti-Asian incidents within Canada, by which, by the way, this is more than incidents per capita than the USA. So did we think that these numbers would plateau or that the severity of the assaults wouldn't escalate? I mean, the red flags were there, and we screamed into a void.
All right, well, renewed calls today for government action in some form. What specifically can government do?
The Canadian government can start by recognizing and naming anti-Asian racism in its federal anti-racism strategy. We need less performative and more grassroots funding. There's a big need to fund this work, the work like groups like Eliminate Hate and Project 1907 are doing, and we're doing as volunteers. We are modern-day cultural railway workers taking care of our community ourselves, and we need to be invited. All these groups that are doing this important work need to be invited to the table to combat racism together, take action towards criminalizing hate speech and racialized violence, making sure that the government makeup is proportional to the population's demographics, so that there are people with similar lived experiences who can develop policies that help equity-seeking communities like ours thrive. Representation matters. We need to push for curriculum to include the history of anti-Asian racism alongside our anti-Indigenous and anti-Black racism.
All right, Carmel, we'll leave it at that. We thank you and the work that your organization does. Appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, the rain and flooding isn't letting up in Australia. Still to come tonight, rescuing people trapped by the high waters there. And at 6:43, look across at North Vancouver, the North Shore Mountains tonight. A mainly dry day on the south coast, but that is about to change when the rain arrives and how long it's sticking around with Johanna Wagstaffe next.
So I was out for a hike around the wooded area surrounding my house and happened upon seeing a dark object on the ice from quite a distance. So I took my camera out and took a test shot and noticed that it was actually an eagle. What I saw, I honestly thought the goose had already expired and was, taking some photos of the eagle, just about to enjoy his reward, essentially. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was a bit of movement, and that's when I noticed the goose was still alive. The eagle certainly tried multiple times to leave with the goose in its talons, take flight and possibly drop him from height, but never got more than a foot off the ice. Yeah, so at the very end, there's a photo that's pretty funny where the goose just decides to have a drink of water, and the eagle puffs out his feathers and tries to dry out a little and takes off flying. He's decided he's bitten off a little too much that he can chew, and so he takes off and flies away at a very low altitude. That's really the real story, I think, is the underdog story. The eagle has all of the leverage, all of the power, all of the weapons, essentially, and he was a very aggressive eagle and knew that he had to finish the job off multiple times, tried to dive from the air down and take the goose out via neck, and it was quite a scene to witness. I did not think the outcome was going to be that the goose survived, but through great determination, courage, and he was able to survive. Kind of just strikes home that you gotta enjoy every day and also fight to the very end.
Asking how old you are today. How old are you today, Mum?
God, why did they ask me that?
This is her on the front page of the Star. She was dancing down at the exhibition. She was 78 years old. Every year she had her Rockettes there, the second mile Rockettes, and they were the hit of the show. She's right here, she's the leader. I think she misses just getting out and about with all the ladies and organising them and getting them shows. What's your secret for living so long, Mum?
Just loving everybody.
Just loving everybody. She used to say being single and drinking lots of water.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rose. Happy birthday to you.
Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Well, we're bracing here in the city. You can kind of feel it, right? I'm just looking outside now, and people are they're waiting for it. It's coming. Yep.
We know, yes, we know impending rain feeling here in Vancouver, and it is crossing the island as we speak. In fact, first raindrops for the Sunshine Coast and Howe Sound any minute now, I think, filling in for us in the next couple of hours. Let me start you off with a big look at the whole country. Temperatures tonight, we've got some very spring-like conditions for places like Toronto and Ottawa, who have been experiencing mid-teen temperatures for a couple of days. It's been cold the past couple up towards Atlantic Canada. Nice recovery for them, and a 9 up towards Vancouver. Here's a look at that radar shot, and you can see it, as I mentioned, filling in. This is the leading front, so the heavier rain is still a couple of hours away, but this radar actually showing a little advancing line earlier than the main event. So maybe those raindrops starting to come well ahead of the steadier rain, which will fill in closer to midnight. Looking at the forecast across the province, this whole front is going to impact all of British Columbia. So we do have snowfall warnings up towards Highway 97 for the North BC Peace region. Heavy snow falling tonight in through tomorrow morning. We'll see that rain build tonight for the central interior and fill in for the Okanagan as well this evening, and even the Kootenays. You're not escaping this system. You'll look for some flurries to fly tomorrow morning mixed in with the rain, a 10 down towards Victoria. Okay, so let's time out that big picture. You can see all of the blue as this system sweeps across BC. Lots of fresh snow for alpine levels. We'll be watching the snow survey, by the way. We're about a week away from the latest snow survey data. We are running at least at or above seasonal, and in some cases, record snowpack for much of the province. So we'll see what the past few weeks have done for our snowpacks. A few active systems still in the cards to bring fresh snow. But we do have a clearing forecast behind that system for the south coast. Look as I take you through to Thursday. So really just a rain event overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. Not a sunny afternoon for us. We may see some late day breaks. It's Thursday that we'll get back to the mix of sun and cloud. You can see that even up towards central and northern coastal sections, much deserved sunshine for you. A quick look at the temperatures in the interior tomorrow. Pretty seasonal for everyone. We're a little cooler behind that system for Wednesday, but then a recovery as we head into Thursday. So looking at that long range forecast, there's the sunshine we've been waiting for kicking in on Thursday. So sunshine late day Wednesday, maybe just before the sun goes down. Actually, could be a good looking sunset tomorrow night. I always like a little drama behind the front. Back up to our seasonal for this time of the year, 30-year average anyway for Thursday. A little warmer as we head into Friday and Saturday. At this point, we're dealing with a northwesterly flow. So a mix of sun and cloud before rain moves in on Sunday. And I just want to take you south of the border, actually, where we are watching a very heavy rain event, Mike. The most populous state in Australia is experiencing some of the worst flooding in decades.
Yeah, thousands are being ordered to evacuate their homes there. And tonight, as Stephanie Skandaris reports, crews are still rescuing those trapped by high water.
Hello, is anybody home?
This rainy weather has been affecting the entire country. At one point, almost every state was under a severe weather warning. But the absolute worst of the damage has been around Sydney in the state of New South Wales. Some areas there are dealing with the worst flooding they've seen in half a century. In some areas, it's more like a century. There have been 38 natural disaster areas declared in that state. We're seeing entire houses washed away. 10,000 calls for help to state emergency services who are out rescuing people. Thankfully, no deaths have been recorded, but 18,000 people have been forced to leave their homes, and officials warn thousands more need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice.
We have several weather fronts impacting a huge area of the state. It's catastrophic in its dimensions, and the impact will be severe.
Many of the places dealing with this flooding have had a rough few years. First drought, then bushfires, then the pandemic. There is disaster relief available from the government, a one-off payment of $1,000 per adult and $400 per kid. But some people have lost everything.
It's going to be a really big cleanup, but the best thing about it is, and being here, is everyone helps each other out.
I'm okay. I was in a car, but I've just rang my mate up because I need some food. I've got no food. I just love to have a nice cup of soup or a cup of coffee.
The good news is the rain does seem to be easing in Greater Sydney, and there is sun in the forecast. But the danger is still present in many areas, and of course the cleanup is only just beginning. Stephanie Skandaris for CBC News, Melbourne.
Well, what many of us did as children has now evolved into an Olympic sport. Just how exactly do you make a sport out of climbing? We'll get one of Canada's athletes heading to Tokyo to explain next.
What? There's no more candy left? This is a job for...
Really, Dada?
My name is Nicholas Hender, and I started a YouTube series over the pandemic. The main reason why is I was laid off from my position due to the pandemic, and I really enjoyed teaching people how to cook. In fact, that was my job as a cooking instructor. And I decided to start an online cooking class with my kids. I decided on a whim one evening that I wanted to teach people how to make salad dressing. And my daughter was nearby, and so I handed her my cell phone, and we did a quick, unedited 5-minute video on how to make salad dressing, balsamic vinaigrette from scratch. And we posted it to Facebook. And I was overwhelmed by the result of it. The messages of support.
Oh, it smells yummy.
People saying how much they liked the video and how much they wanted to see more of. So I pursued basically looking at how can I do this on YouTube. So I taught myself how to video edit, taught myself how to search music and sound effects and interlay it with on a video editing software. And it was basically learning while doing. Then family members started getting involved, and friends. And my brother's a musician who wrote theme music for our show. We came up with a funny name, and friends even did a logo for us. So it's been a really almost a community effort. And with me, of course, as always, is my camera person, Stella.
Hello.
There she is. Stella in particular wants to be involved in every step. In fact, she is the camera person extraordinaire, as I call her on the videos.
Hello.
And she comes up with shots ideas. Even the subject matter of our videos are often dictated by her. Our next video, for example, is going to be popcorn, which is directly influenced by the children. So they have a great input all the time. The timing could have been better, I think. People like myself, I guess, are now home. And I think people are experimenting with cooking at home that may have not done it before. And so with the pandemic, there's more interest in learning how to cook. Having an outlet that's easily accessed to their cell phones in the evenings in short, 15-minute videos can be a great benefit to them. So I think that's one of the reasons why I've seen so much success in such a short amount of time. Which one's better, Arthur? All right. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining us again for another episode of Hungry Hungry Henders. This is Stella.
Hello.
Arthur. I'm Nick, and we hope to see you again on our next episode. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Celebrate Surrey's brightest leaders with CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at the virtual Surrey Board of Trade Top 25 Under 25 Awards on April 22nd. Get your tickets today at businessinsurrey.com. And on April 25th, CBC Vancouver's Gloria Makarenko will host Vancouver Cherry Blossom Festival's Sakura at Home. Visit vcbf.ca for tickets and more information.
Okay, don't get cold feet. If you dare, try running in this marathon.
No kidding. It's an annual race run on a frozen lake in the Russian region of Siberia. Racers travel 42.2 kilometers through wind and snow on Lake Baikal, the largest and deepest freshwater lake in the world. The competition was smaller this year because of the pandemic, but racers were no less determined. Wow.
Yeah, okay, the winning time, 3.5 hours. That is an extreme sport for certain. No hills, I guess, though, right?
Yeah, it's flat.
Yeah, exactly. And see you lacing out, that's your kind of thing. You might give that a try.
That's a bit too extreme, even for me. But yeah, the frozen badge of honor at the end would be well worth it, I think.
Yes.
Speaking of athletes, last week we introduced you to the first Canadian athlete to compete in sport climbing at the upcoming Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, but how these two Vancouver-based climbers compete for medals there? Well, CBC caught up with one of them who explains how it's all going to work.
Hi, my name's Alana Yip. I am a sport climber from Vancouver, BC, and today I'll be training a little bit of the Olympic discipline, so a little bit of lead climbing, a little bit of speed climbing, and some bouldering. So speed climbing is a vertical race. You've got two climbers on identical climbs, racing for 15 meters, just straight up the wall. Very easy to understand and very exciting to watch. Bouldering is the one behind me. It's on 4-meter tall walls with mats underneath, so you don't wear a rope. It's more dynamic and a lot more to do with problem solving, and you do it all by yourself. And lead climbing is, again, 15 to 17 meter tall walls. You're on a rope, and it's a lot about endurance. So the Olympic discipline is actually, you have to do all three almost separate competitions, and they multiply the results. Climbing has been a very small, sort of niche sport for a long time, this sort of outdoor adventure type of sport. Previously, climbing just wasn't big enough to be in the Olympics. Got to attend the opening ceremony of the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, and I was transfixed by the athlete parade. I sat there and watched the entire thing, just imagining how all the athletes must feel walking out into that stadium to represent their countries. And ever since then, I've really wanted to go to the Olympics and was lucky enough that my sport made it in.
We'll look forward to seeing that at the upcoming Olympic Games. It's definitely different.
Yeah, I love seeing the new ones that come out every so often. You know, we had the trampolining, and I feel like Canadians do well in the sort of alt sports. So I'm rooting for us.
All those things from the X Games that are now being used in the Olympics. I guess if you have a fear of heights, though, and that kind of thing, that might not be such a good idea. So I'll have to recuse.
It's a good spectator sport as well.
There you go. All right, thanks, Joe, and thank you for being with us. Just a reminder, you can always watch our newscast online, cbc.ca/BC. Isabel Regem is here, in for Dan Burrett after the National tonight at 11. Have a great night.
Good night.